Hey guys, I just wanted to do a little review of the Thomann website. The first guitar I bought from them was this really cool looking 7-string, which changes color. I don't know if you can see that too well here, but it changes color from purple to green. So that's really cool, right? It's got two humbuckers that, for this kind of guitar, are pretty good, but not that good. And so you really do need a badass amp and maybe some pedals to run it through if you want it to sound really heavy, because the humbuckers are cheap, right? But that's okay if you can make up for it with the rest of the hardware. The neck is obviously cheap, but they got the fan frets. That's cool. It plays cool. I don't know how good it would be if you were doing some advanced speed metal stuff, but I'm mainly using the 7th and other lowest strings for it. So I haven't had any real problems with the neck. However, the problem that I had with this was that I thought I was buying an 8-string guitar, and I got a 7-string. I had searched 8-string guitars, gone to the page for their 8-string guitar, and then thought I was just changing the color to make it this cool color. And then I received a 7-string guitar instead of an 8-string guitar, which I wasn't too happy with at first. But I ended up really liking this guitar and just saying, okay, I'll keep it. The reason being, when I told them I had this problem, they blamed it on me for not paying close enough attention. It's like, well, it seems like you're just changing the color when you click this button, right? It doesn't seem like you're changing the number of strings, and why would you? That's a whole different guitar. Like, why would that even be a thing that you can do? And they said, well, if you want to exchange it, you're going to have to cover the shipping. The shipping to get it to me was $80. I have to pay $80 to ship it back, and then another $80 to ship another one to me, which would make the shipping more than the price of the guitar itself. So I figured I'll just keep it. And then I went and bought another guitar, because I like this one so much in spite of it not having the 8th string. I went and bought another guitar, and then this one I had even worse problems with. This one, the pickups suck even worse. They are just terrible microphonic pickups with no real distortion. They don't, they're really only for clean playing, it seems. Then this freaking switch just falls right out. The hole drilled is too big, right? So it just fell right out, and it wasn't even connected to a wire. It didn't fall out and hang there off of a wire, right? The pickup fell out, not even connected to anything. So, I pulled these wires out, looking to see if I could deal with this. And it's like, no, I'm not going to be able to deal with this. I'm going to have to take it to a luthier. I don't even know what I would do to get the thing to stick in there. I don't know how expensive it's going to be to repair. It seems like a much more complicated job than a non-hollow body guitar, because there's no way to open the back up, right? So I don't know if that's even fixable or how. I mean, it probably is, but it's going to cost me. And when I told them about this problem and asked them to exchange it, they said no. They told me to go and get it fixed on my own, pay for it on my own, and then tell them how much it cost, and that they would reimburse me. And I'm like, okay, so if I've had these problems at all, how can I even trust this company to reimburse me? Because that's not usually how these things would go. Usually the company would just exchange the product, right? So how can I even trust that they're going to reimburse me after I pay for it out of my own pocket, assuming I even have the money to do that, depending on how expensive it is. It's the holidays and everything. I don't trust them to, right? Because obviously they're doing things like this in the first place, sending out bootleg guitars that haven't been put together properly. They've got switches falling out of holes that are too big for them. They're not even connected to the wires. Like, this seems a bit like a scam, right? So I was like, no, this isn't how these things are supposed to work. You're supposed to just exchange a defective product. You're selling it to New York State, and that's New York State law right there. You're supposed to be able to return or exchange a defective product that's been sold to you. But instead, they just stonewall me. They refused to do anything about it, and I had to go to my bank and file a complaint, a dispute to the charge, and have them do a chargeback. And it took literally like 3 months for the whole process, because Thomann was trying not to give the money back any way that they could, right? So I've basically had this guitar for like 4 or 5 months now that is unusable, and I didn't get the money back for all this time until just a few days ago, right? My money was tied up. I had a guitar I couldn't use. I'm basically just sitting here for months waiting for something to happen. So luckily now I'm finally in a place where I can, now that I've gotten this money back, get this guitar repaired, hoping that it doesn't cost more than the cost of the guitar. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, this Thomann website is a bit scammy. They're selling some really cheap, crappy instruments that are going to cost you a lot of money to ship to you, and they're not going to cover the shipping, and they're also going to give you a hard time about returns and exchanges for any reason. Even if it's totally their fault and they really do owe you a new product, they're just not going to want to do it. So they could put you in a very bad situation like I was put in. And even if the product works, their website sucks. It's designed in a really poor manner. So you could accidentally, thinking that you're just changing the color or something, change the instrument entirely, or who knows what other problems could occur with using a website that is that crappy, right? So I'm not calling them outright scammers. that are doing this stuff on purpose to rip people off, like a website such as Guitar Fetish probably is doing. But they're certainly making really cheap instruments that shouldn't be passing inspection and shouldn't be going out at all because they're falling apart upon being used, and they're not offering exchanges or returns or refunds or anything like that. They're attempting to basically screw people when they sell them a cheap instrument that arrives in a state of disrepair, which is illegal. So, you could actually call them a scammer, because that's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to ship someone something in a state of disrepair that doesn't even work and then refuse to exchange or return it or refund it. So yeah, this was a really frustrating and difficult thing to go through, and is why I won't be using Thomann anymore ever again in the future, and why I do not recommend using them yourself either. If you need a cheap instrument, there's better ways to get them, and you're just going to be putting yourself through a lot of bullshit when you use Thomann, and I recommend looking for cheap instruments elsewhere.